Hi, I'm Tim Berglund with Confluent. Welcome to this course on data mesh. In it, we're going to learn what a data mesh even is, some of the challenges and trade-offs faced during the implementation of one, and the best approaches maybe for trying to build one out in your organization. Now, data mesh seems to be a really abstract concept right now in these early days. What it is really is a set of principles for designing a modern data architecture. And this is similar to the way microservices are a set of principles for modern software architectures. And microservices have frameworks, there's Spring Boot, there's Micronaut in the Java world, there's practices, there's books, there's all kinds of things. People have built them. And data mesh really is conceptually very similar, but it's a lot earlier in its evolution. It's really a new idea, and one I think you're doing the right thing by studying right now. There are 4 principles that comprise data mesh, and they're all technology agnostic. Okay, they're not like, data mesh is not a Java thing or a Kafka thing or a relational database thing. All these principles, they don't really care what technology you're using. The best way to think about data mesh is to frame the problem that it solves. A well-implemented data mesh lets you scale a data architecture in 2 ways. First, the crassly, the technology scale way, like can I add enough computers to make it run fast enough, right? So it's fundamentally scalable in that way. And can I scale it across an organization as a business evolves and changes and grows, and the things people want out of data change, and we're pushing that data down to the operational level, where the jobs of individual contributors are affected by data products and not just reports that sit on the desk of important people. So this is some idea of the way for you to think conceptually about data mesh. Now, it has many genetic influences, the things that have come before it that influence it. Things like data marts, domain-driven design. If you're a DDD person, you're going to see those ideas all over the place here. Microservices, again, strong analogy. I think the best analogy really is data mesh is to data and analytics what microservices is to application architecture. Personally, I may be a little bit biased here, but I can't look at data mesh and not think about Kafka and not think about event streaming. I think you'll see that as we go on. Now, we're going to get into more detail throughout this course. I have concepts and high-level ideas I need to get across to you, but we'll try to make it concrete now. For now, though, let's talk a little bit about those influences and how they combine. I think really they culminate in 4 principles that govern how data is managed in the mesh. Not surprisingly, you're looking at the outline for the middle part of this course here, so don't be surprised if you see modules named this as we move on. First of all, data is always owned by a specific domain. In much the same way that microservices each own a specific business function, the data here in a data mesh is also broken down around a specific domain in the business. Access to that data is then decentralized. So there's not a data bureau, a data team, an analytics team, anything like that. There's a place where that data lives, probably coextensive with the functionality that is the microservices that produce that data, and the access to that data is granted at that point. Second, data is considered a product by each team that publishes it. I kind of just implied in the first principle that a team owns data, just like a team would own the set of services that implement the slice of the business that they're supporting. Well, same thing here, and that team has to engage in product thinking about the data. They're wholly responsible for it, its quality, its representation, its cohesiveness, like it was a thing that they were, sculpting out of glass and polishing and putting in a storefront. They just want that thing to look nice and to be useful. So third, data is available everywhere and self-serve, anywhere in the company. Now, I hear what you're saying. You're thinking about governance. Governance is still a thing, but in principle, these data products are published and they're available everywhere. So if you're producing a sales report for a sales forecast for Japan, you can find and source all of the data you need to drive that report, ideally in a small amount of time, a few minutes. So getting that data from all the places where it lives into some database or some reporting system that you have control of. Fourth, data is governed where it is. Now, governance is always a concern, of course, and that concern is going to be driven down ideally to the place where the data is created and produced. Now, no data architecture is perfect. or ever perfectly static. Things always evolve and grow. Governance kind of ring fences this, allowing you to trust and more quickly navigate data in the mesh and believe, subject to these governance constraints, that you can use the stuff you find. Now, this picture probably looks like things you've built or used or seen. We all know data architectures often lack rigor and they evolve in an ad hoc way, often maybe without as much discipline or structure as we'd like. Applied well, data mesh takes this messy architecture, this kind of architecture, which we've all seen, and turns it into something more uniform and more manageable, a kind of central nervous system for the data in your organization. And that's a great metaphor because nervous systems are themselves meshes, right? I mean, you think of, okay, there's a brain and there's nerves that go out to the parts of the body, but look inside, say, that brain. That really is a mesh of independent little products, connected to one another. And that's kind of the analogy we're going for here. So if something happens in one part of your organization, it can immediately trigger something to happen in another part. This approach solves a number of common problems. At the smaller scale, it addresses many of the issues we see with data pipelines, which often become brittle and problematic over time by kind of creating their own web and messy point-to-point-to-point kind of system. It also addresses larger organizational issues, like different departments in a company disagreeing on core facts of the business. We're going to be less likely in a data mesh to have those copies of facts. Of course, it's still possible, but this mesh approach discourages that. In both cases, the data mesh principles, when applied correctly, can bring much needed order to a system. This results in a more mature, more manageable, hopefully more evolvable data architecture. And as you've noticed, this concept of data mesh has organizational and technological dimensions. Essentially, we can think of data mesh as a network to exchange data about the business, about what's happening right now, with nodes and with connections. Now, the nodes in the mesh are the data products. We're going to learn more about them later in their own lesson. But for now, let's just imagine a node could be a microservice, a database, an application, something like that, to keep it concrete. So our feet are still on the ground here. The nodes function in such a way as to produce and consume high quality, locally curated data within the mesh. So that data is, again, curated, productized by the team that's building it for the benefit of the other nodes. Related nodes, those nodes that are connected, are grouped into domains. A domain might be inventory or orders or pipeline sensors or something like that. And the data flows node to node and thus from domain to domain as needed. So that's a quick look at what a data mesh is. We're going to dive into the first principle of data mesh in more detail as we explore data ownership by different domains. But first, let me get you geared up to try things out in Confluent Cloud. So note this code you see on the slide right now, Data Mesh 101. No spaces there, all capitals, Data Mesh 101. And the URL you see on the screen, QR code if you would like. So now you could probably figure out how to sign up for Confluent Cloud, but you know what? I'm still going to walk you through it and show you a little screencast of it. So to get started, you go to the URL on the screen, then enter your name and email and a password you like. I'm going to trust you to do those things. And this email and password, this is your account for Confluent Cloud. So like save those things, put them in your password manager or a Post-it note on your monitor, whatever it is you do. Please don't really do the Post-it note thing. That would be bad. So click the Start Free button and watch your inbox for a confirmation email. Once you get it, click the link in the confirmation email. Takes you to the next step where you can choose between a basic, standard, or dedicated cluster. Now the UI here is going to tell you something about the difference between those and their associated cost differences and everything. If you're taking a course here on Confluent Developer, in most cases basic clusters work and those are the cheapest and that you'll get the most out of your free trial money there. So click Begin Configuration to choose your preferred cloud provider, region, availability zone, all of the basic stuff. Costs will vary with those choices, but they're all clearly shown on the screen. So you can see what your provider and region is going to cost you. Then continue to set up billing info. And here you see you get a chunk of free usage for your first 3 months, and also the Data Mesh 101 code that gets you an additional $101 because we'd honestly like you to be able to do the exercise here in this course without having to pay for it. Click Review one last time, make sure everything looks good, then launch your new cluster. There you are. You're ready to go. Here's that promo code again, just in case. Go sign up, and we'll see you in the next lesson.